Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Hey, how are you, cousin?
Baruch Hashem.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm admitting people. You look at you, you're all dressed up.
Wow.
And nowhere to go.
Yeah, it was a long day. So
Were you in court? Were you in court?
Yeah, I was in court. Yeah.
That's why you look so handsome? Did you
why
get
I'm dressed
him
in a
off?
uniform.
Did you get him off? Did you win?
It depends on how you look at it. Depends on how you look at it.
I'm not asking about it in
you,
a gay bathhouse sense.
Yes.
I'm
I need you for that. I need your help. I need your help. I have demanding clients. Very demanding clients.
Yeah, all right. So did you win the case? That's the question.
Depends on how you look at it. It really does.
Oh,
it really
well,
is subjective. Yeah.
Well, if it's subjective, then just say you fucking won, dude. Go with that. I mean,
I don't want to say. Look, I have a good time. My clients are satisfied. I have a good time. That's what matters.
I know you're the attorney's attorney. You are the attorney that other attorneys who have attorney problems go to, which is a really wonderful place to be. I used to be the doctor's doctor. So I was very proud of that. I understand what it is. And I understand, you know, you have a very interesting job and a very interesting position. And it's, of course, in keeping with our ethnic tradition of debate and thoughtful law. And that's wonderful. You know, I mean, I have often, thought about going to law school as well. I mean, it's to me, it's a very interesting field, and I like philosophical discussion and debate a lot, which is, you know, what has brought me here.
Yeah, right? I think being here where we are now is much better than that. If you want philosophical debate, go to yeshiva.
Yeah. That's what I ended up understanding that too. Like, if you want to be able to heal people, I'm not so sure you should go into medicine per se. So I get where you're going with this. I mean, there's positives, there's negatives, but anyway, I've always admired your the pursuit of your profession and your success, and always been very impressed by it.
Well, thank you, cuz I love you.
I love you back.
Trying to do the right thing.
We have an interesting. So I don't know, by the way, if Channing is going to show up tonight. I'm hoping he. What?
They showed up.
Oh, Channing. Okay, Channing is here, and I don't know if I've introduced you. Everyone here knows Channing. You'll find Channing in our Discord, Hakam Channing, and he and I would say have become good friends and are kind of kindred spirits, who I think I would very much, I mean, I'm dying to get to know him better. And he and I both lead very busy lives. And I think he feels the same way. And we would love to get together and have some time. I might have to just come out and visit Channing. And he happens to have some particular expertise in today's Parsha. So,
fantastic.
Yeah,
I would love to have more participation in this. A typical for those of you who are joining and maybe never have learned Torah before, there's definitely a style and to doing it. It's not typically a lecture style. So it's very unusual. Sometimes we'll go through this the hour, and Rav Yirmiyahu and I will be going back and forth, but everyone else is, there's some people chime in, but a typical Torah study would be a rabbi there, and the rabbi gets 30 seconds in, and all of a sudden, a question comes. And then someone else builds on that question. And then sometimes the rabbi will just get through the fifth sentence in the Parsha at the end of an hour.
Yeah, I don't think, but I think only one time have we actually gotten through the Parsha.
What's unique is because about tonight is we don't have book club afterwards, so you can go as long as you want.
That's true. We don't have book club tonight, and we can go a little longer if it happens. If it happens.
But I would encourage, everyone, the point of Torah is to be inspired, and if something is coming to your head, if something is it's reminding you of something, that's what this is for. It's for us to engage in this discussion. And if it's coming to you, this idea, it will probably resonate in others, and it's relevant. Even if it's tangential, it's relevant to what the Torah Parsha is trying to do for us and elevate us. So in this way, by discussing the Parsha, we're elevating the moment, we're elevating each other, and bringing each other closer to the oneness that we try and achieve, that reality. So, hello everyone. It is Ramadan, so Ramadan Kareem to our Muslim brothers and sisters. And it is the new month of Adar, and Adar is the happy month. This is the second month of Adar, because in the Jewish calendar, we go by a lunar calendar, and I think 3 years, what we do is we add a month, a leap month, so that our holidays will stay around the same time. So it's different from Muslims who follow a lunar calendar. And what happens is, because the lunar calendar doesn't match up with the solar calendar, the Ramadan will fall on different times each year. But what we try and do is make sure our harvest festival falls in the fall, and that Passover will always fall in the spring. And other holidays will fall in accordance with the seasons. So this holiday is a really big holiday, and we're supposed to be joyous every day. Obviously joyous all the time, but really, really embrace the joy around us. And I know it's very hard. I think this world right now is very confusing, and there's a lot of illogic going on. People are not making sense. More than ever, I think the world just is not making sense. But that's okay, because I'll tell you what I do. When something doesn't make sense to me, or something happens to me, which I don't understand, and I perceive it as potentially something maybe not so positive, I smile and I say, "Thank you, God. What next?" Because the universe, when things start happening to you, and the universe, you're tied in. You're really linked in. The universe, God, which is the universe and oneness, loves you, loves all of us. And when things happen, even those if you stub your toe, that's from God. That stubbing that toe is from God, and not God, the separate being, but God, the oneness of the universe, is looking after you, and you are meant to stub your toe. That means you're on the radar. And it's good to be on the radar. It's always good to be engaged. And when you're stubbing your toe, and when you're losing your keys, you're engaged. Okay? When you can't find your keys, or you misplaced your glasses, or you lost some money on the market, you're engaged with the world. And that's a very important place to be. So I'd like to get into the Parsha, but let's do our quick, let's do the bracha right before. So it's a tradition to say a blessing over the Torah before studying it. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher barach banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Hashem, Noten haTorah. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who has given us with the Torah. Blessed are you, Hashem, giver of the Torah. So before we get into it, I always like to talk a little bit about the whole concept of why we're even doing this and where the Torah comes from. So many religious traditions, they have a book which is divinely inspired. And we believe that Moshe wrote the Torah as transcribed from God to Moshe's hands, and it was written by Moshe. And the concept of God for Jews is the concept of a oneness, and not a one God in the sense that like one God sitting on a throne judging everything, but everything. But God is everything. You, me, the table that's in front of us, the food that we eat, the world is one, and that oneness that is the representation of God. So there is no separation. And in recognizing that, if we say, okay, well then what's the Torah all about? This separation, this oneness expands beyond time. It goes past, future, present, has been, is, and will always be. That's our belief in God. So if a book comes from this divine source, then this book will have application in the past, in the present, and in the future. And so just as we're reading the Parsha now, 100 years ago, 400 years ago, 1,000 years ago, Jews were looking over this Parsha and it applied to them, and they were figuring out how this Parsha applied to them and what message it was sending them in that moment, in that time. So what we're doing today is we're going to explore the Parsha in a way to understand how it applies to us now, and how once we understand that and we decode it, we then are realizing or become closer to that whole essence or that concept of oneness. Now, there are many ways to connect with God. You can do kindness to others, you can meditate, you can admire a flower, you can express gratitude. Everything that, all of those things are bringing you closer to that oneness, that connection. And by studying Torah, what we're doing is we're also doing that. And hopefully this will inspire gratitude and meditation and appreciation and kindness. And so that's the goal of going through this. Now, I know I'm Rabbi Yirmiyahu's cousin, and we both have had similar types of Jewish education. And I am not a rabbi. I don't claim to be a rabbi, but I've gone through reading the Torah and in the annual cycle for many years, and been taught by many different rabbis and gone through that. And so I don't claim to know everything, and you got to learn as you go.
I have to interrupt for a second. It's like,
yeah.
It's like he's saying he's not a rabbi, ladies and gentlemen. But again, rabbi is a term that is bestowed upon someone by others. And to me, you are a rabbi. And by sitting there in your humbleness, you are sitting there saying, like, I'm not a tzaddik. I don't claim to be a tzaddik. I'm definitely not a tzaddik. And don't think of me as a good, righteous person. Okay. You are a wise man. And while you may not fit your definition of rabbi, you fit my definition of rabbi.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but there has to be a distinguishing characteristic, in my opinion, of that title. Just like we would indicate a professor might have certain letters past their name, and then they engage in the teaching. A rabbi too then has a certain acknowledgement that they've attained a certain level of learning, and it's called smicha. They go to a school.
Yeah,
I'm not there.
I'm just another
Jew.
We all know you're not officially a rabbi, but you're still a rabbi.
I love everyone. I love the world. I love Torah. I love engaging in the oneness, and that's why I'm here. And, yes, and I appreciate it.
And that way, you're a leader, a spiritual leader, a leader.
We're all, we all are leaders.
That's right.
The oneness. We're all leaders. That's the oneness. We're all leaders. We lead our own lives. We lead lives for others. We connect. Well, anyway, let's get on to the Parsha. We can debate whether or not I'm a rabbi or not.
Okay, yeah, but all right. So okay. Yeah. I know that we're going to get onto the Parsha, but I have to just slightly. I'm going to divert us a little bit before the Parsha, actually, and the reason I'm going to divert us is because poor Hakam Channing is driving home right now, and he says that he can, and so I don't want to. I want to make it convenient for Channing because Channing has something to add that none of you will have ever get the opportunity again to know. This is unbelievable information. It's one of the things that makes I'm just incredibly excited, and I want to give, you know, Channing's driving, so I want to sort of like make it convenient for Channing to share with us. The Parsha tonight, if I might just summarize quickly and then introduce Channing, is that the Parsha tonight talks about the construction of various garments to wear. Now, okay, Channing happens to be, if I can I introduce you now? Can I do that? Are you okay? I haven't seen in your chat or okay. Okay, I can introduce you. Good. Okay, so Channing happens to be a world-renowned specialist artist in knitting, shearing, and wool, and making yarn. And this is a part of a discussion that actually occurs in this Parsha, and it talks about dyeing the wool different colors, which Channing does. And he does this in a much different way than you and I do it with color. He makes the most spectacular colors. One of the ways he's been able to categorize colors is with this NASA engineer who actually, her job is in NASA is NASA Defense, to make sure that if there's any contact or alien, that we don't bring any biohazards back or introduce biohazards to external worlds. And a very interesting person, and they've come up with a very interesting method of categorizing color, which is different than visual, and I believe that has added to Channing's artwork to make the colors and dyeing processes that he uses particularly spectacular and vibrant. And then on top of that, there used to be, and I'm just going quickly back into some Hebrew lore, Jewish lore, a dye, a color of blue that was one of the strings, if I understand, of the tzitzit, which is our version of knot magic, okay, which is a way of tying knots that reminds us of the time when we were oppressed and are no longer oppressed, and there's unity and yada, yada, yada. Okay, and there was supposed to be a blue string, but people took it out because they didn't know how to make the dye or which string was supposed to be dyed. Because as you know, Jews are so particular that they even have instructions on when and how to cut which order of fingernails. So as it turns out, this dye has been rediscovered. Channing has incorporated this dye again into his artwork and his yarn production and wool production. And I thought maybe, we could get maybe a small 5 or 10 minute, history or something, because, Channing was in the know in this one particular thing. And if you've read the Parsha, you know that they're talking about wool here.
I think that's great. Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, let's hear it, Channing. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. You're great.
Yeah, no, I was really fascinated, especially I would like to do a much deeper dive onto Bezalel and Oholiab. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly, but those are obviously the two of the artisans that actually get major recognition. They're not just named, their parents are named, their parents' parents, and the tribe that they're from. They're both named. One is from the tribe of Judah and the other is tribe from Dan. And they were gifted by Hashem for their amazing art and ability to make art, both with the Mishkan and all this stuff. They were just blessed with the artistic ability. And it was Oliab who was the one who was a carver, designer, and embroiderer of the ephod and the holy vestments that the priests use. Now, in it, this blue color, which is it's actually called the helet, and it was what is it, about 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago, they lost the technology to make this blue. And it was also the blue that was, or the same dye that was used to make the Tyrian purple for the Catholic priests and the Roman officials, and it was very expensive to make. And
right.
it was only till I believe it was the 90s that they actually start archaeological digs. What they thought were like trash dumps turned out to be the sites where they made the dye, and the dye was made. Yes, Jeremy.
I just want to interrupt to explain to everyone very quickly that purple, in particular, has been over time an extremely difficult color to make, an extremely difficult dye to make, and this is why it is associated with royalty, right? That because it was hard to make, so it's going to be something that is only found of the wealthy. So when you think of King Solomon, this color of purple continues to transcend over time, as a signifier of royalty.
But it's actually
now we didn't use it that way, but I just want everyone to understand how important purple is in society at that time.
The process for making the blue, the purple, and the crimson yarns were all the same process, and it was used, as they found, there is a certain gland in the murex snail, a sea snail, and right behind the anus there is a tiny little gland that they would kind of squeeze out like a half a drop of this liquid, and in order to make a single strand you need like 100 snails. And so they found a walled city. This stuff was so expensive that they actually had a fortified walled city around the factory that made this dye. And how long you expose it to sunlight after you have it reacted to certain chemicals is whether it turns blue, purple, or crimson by the exposure of the light.
I did not know that.
Danny, yeah. Got a question for you. So in the process, was any snail killed in the process of making this, making the techelet?
I think probably one of the reasons why they lost the technology is, one, for the fall of the Roman Empire, and two, because they were overfished. They were they literally found what they thought was like a huge city's trash dump, when really it was a small factory that had a massive mass killing of these snails. So as a vegan myself, the best way to be kosher, and I probably the original, I mean, we could talk about the original laws behind kosher, but I have a problem with using that dye, but I had to experiment with it. And you can get this powder, this murex snail gland powder, in small amounts from Israel. And so I was making my own tzitzit and wanted to use this dye. And so I believe you posted pictures.
Yes, I posted them in the chat there
on Discord. The blue yarn is the actual official techelet yarn dye that was used in the process, and I only made it blue and not so not the purple or the crimson. The red yarns were richly made using Kavanagh and the what is it, the the laws according to making these yarns, which are very strict. The halat, yeah. Anyway, so those were made for ritual purposes for other things, not more of like I haven't really decided what to do with them yet, but the red ones were spun using Kavanagh and the required things to make them for use in ritual purposes. The blue ones are for to have a single strand in each of my tzitzit.
Yes, I would really. We'll talk. Yeah, I want to offline.
So Channing, which blue is the techelet? Is it the dark?
It's the light blue. It's the sort of light. It's the light turquoisey kind of blue. It's beautiful. It's this gorgeous, vibrant. The other one is this dark, rich royal blue, I would call it.
Yeah.
That was you. Those were synthetic dyes. But the light blue is because I needed to make enough yarn to make all the tzitzit, but it's so hard and so expensive to get the techelet. So I kind of had to stretch it a little bit. So it's not as richly blue as it normally is, but I think it works for me. Because it is the dye, it is the color, it is the tzitzits. And I've even seen tzitzits tied so that the blue yarn actually spells out Yud Hey Vav Hey in each of the strings.
Oh, really?
And that is beautiful. Actually seeing a tzitzit that spells out Yud Hey Vav Hey throughout its length.
Wow.
I'll see if I can find that and post a link in Discord.
I want that. Want that. Yes. Okay. All right. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's tzitzit.
No, I can show it to you. I mean, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Okay. But
I'll post all the links so anyone can make their own.
Wow. Yeah. But wow. No, but we can't use snail. I mean, that's so wonderful. So Aaron, anyway, I'm so glad that you and Channing got a chance to meet. Everybody should hopefully know. I mean, your yarn work is amazing, and I know some of the stuff you have studied more about what this Parsha talks about. So thank you so much. I mean,
and also that they actually hammered gold so thin that they used it as yarn as well. And so they actually knitted or wove these garments with both the crimson, the blue, the purple, and the golden thread. Like actual gold. Not dyed, but the actual gold thread.
That's right. You can hammer gold so thin as being only 1 atom thick. So there was, I know, technology to spin gold. It's just it's an interesting. Wow. Thank you so much. Well, we should go on to the actual Parsha.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron.
Channing. I mean, you mentioned Bezalel Nohile. What are your and you are an artisan yourself.
Yes.
Knowing what you mentioned that one was from Dan, the other was from Yehuda, I think, right?
Yes.
And we talked last week. I mentioned that Hashem chose these two people who came from very different backgrounds. Like Yehuda is one of the top tribes that's considered like a really big deal, and Dan was not. But then both of them. So what the Torah is teaching us is two people can come from very different backgrounds who might have a different social status, yet together they're producing this wonderful work.
Yeah. Before in the previous parsha, they actually say that God that Bezalel was blessed by God with the gift of artisanship, And then, that's, kind of rare to be gifted like that, like actually said in the Parsha that he was gifted by Hashem. Whereas in here, and this Parsha, it says, at his side was Oliab, son of Azimath of the tribe of Dan, carver and designer, embroider in blue, so it's like they're working together. So I find that very fascinating, that out of nowhere. And when they actually name someone and their parents and their grandparents, the person is important.
Right, it's a big
Miriam.
deal. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and how this is, I think, I'm trying to bring back more the arts back to Judaism, because so much of it had been, for fear of false idols, so much of it has been kind of regulated away. But here we have actual text proof that these were serious artisans involved. Anyways, I'll let you go on.
It makes
So
there's several. I mean, there's at least two parshas, three at least involving these two guys and their talents.
So here's the question I have for you, Channing. I don't know if you thought about this, but on a practical matter, the Jews were slaves in Egypt before coming out to the desert, and the story of being freed from slavery really doesn't describe Jews as doing fine, like artisanship with like cloth or anything like that. We're told that they're building the cities of Pithom and Ramses. So the image it conjures up is one of just hard labor. And, in the story of Pesach and freedom is then Paro by punishing them because Moshe is asking to be free to go worship. Then Paro says, now you have to make your own bricks. So it's really like brick building. We're seeing Jews in the
construction industry
as masons, right?
Not necessarily in the artisan. Well, you're saying that they're in the construction industry, which is kind of brutal and less nuanced, maybe, than say the Michelangelo of fanciness and decoration. But I don't know that just because one is mentioned, that means that the other is absent. I mean, if they found a really kick-ass painter, you don't put that guy on the line of workers, right? You put that guy on the painting job.
So let me explain something. The sages say that the Jews never lost their identity as slaves for several reasons. I think there are four. I probably will only remember three. One is they kept their Hebrew names.
Yeah.
They kept the clothing.
Yeah.
So the clothing indicates, I'm not going to go into the others, but the clothing indicates that there was craftsmanship regarding textile work. Otherwise, so their clothing that they made was unique to the Egyptians. So they weren't assimilating with the Egyptians because they were still making clothing that was unique to the Jewish people.
Right, like Moses'
Egyptian
blanket. Isn't Moses' blanket like a Levi blanket?
Well,
That was good.
the Egyptian, there's a lot of Egyptian art that they found in temples and whatnot that actually depict Jews, and they were able to tell that they were Jews because of the dress.
Interesting. So what was different? What was different about their, if you recall?
As I recall, they had these four-cornered garments that were more like ponchos.
Which would be like this here, like a tzitzit.
Yes.
So like I'm wearing. Yeah.
Ali Katan.
I'll show everyone what one looks like. A little show and tell here.
All right, you're da boom boom. So what happens now if your friend shows up who was upset about my cursing last time? They're gonna see you stripping during Torah study?
Right. Now I'm stripping for the Parsha.
stripping for Torah, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
So, like this.
You wear
Like
This
mine.
is Torah study like you've never seen it before, ladies and gentlemen. Step right up.
I admit,
Okay,
I only wear
like
my
this, Jenny?
tzitzit during certain prayers and rituals.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
say that again.
I only wear my tzitzit during certain prayers or rituals.
Yeah.
You
So-
know, not on a daily basis, but
Okay. Yeah, I wear mine not every day, but on some days, and then I wear a tali, the larger tali, for Shachri. For
Can
the
I
morning.
ask if you wore that? May I ask if you wore that because you were going to court? Okay, and so you felt that that was maybe a good thing to do to wear for court. Okay.
yeah, I probably would too.
I'm not
It's
gonna,
armor.
I'm just gonna leave that right there for you to think about, Aaron.
It's armor. It's armor. It is.
Okay,
armor.
I'm gonna just leave that right there for you.
You want to see what
think about.
else? I have some other secret weapons. So
Oh, you do. Show
yeah.
us.
So in my inside breast pocket of my suit jacket, I
Yeah.
always carry a small book of Tehillim, which are Psalms.
Yeah. Oh, you carry the book of Psalms, do you? Oh,
And-
for protection. I understand.
And a Rebbe dollar.
Oh, a dollar signed by the Rebbe?
It's not signed by the Rebbe, but it was part of the Rebbe's the Tzedakah campaign.
Whoa.
Then- On microfiche, okay, microfiche, I have the Chitat, which is the Siddur, the Chumash,
Oh,
which is the Siddur Chumash and the Tanya, as well as a picture of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So
okay. The Tanya, everybody, is like the Zohar. It's a Jewish mysticism, a book of mysticism that's like 100 books long. So he's carrying that on microfiche because nobody could actually carry that text on them unless they were a donkey. So oh, I see. Wonderful. Good. And you keep your head covered.
But also, just to get back onto the Parsha, the actual these making of things is there are some scholars who believe that not only did the Jews go with Moshe, there was a lot of Egyptians who also was like, the hell with this, I'm gonna go with these dudes. They're righteous.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
there's a lot of Egyptian mysticism and Egyptian crafts and whatnot. Also, there's a lot of cross-pollination that was going on all over the area.
Well, that happens when any two cultures get together. If you have a slave culture and a dominant culture,
Mhm.
there is both cultural appropriation,
Yes.
and there's willful, transmigration of cultural events. I mean, of course, as you all know, eating black-eyed peas is exactly one of those things, right?
Or even have indigenous Americans, indigenous to Turtle Island, a lot of them are Christians, and they practice their own indigenous religious beliefs and practices.
Yeah, I mean, that's how cultures find their way of getting along. I mean, even if you're going to have people in your home or whatever, you have to, it doesn't matter. Through slavery, through any type of contact, whether they own a restaurant or whatever, right? You walk into the Chinese restaurant, you see the little Buddha and the little kitty, and you go, what is that? And they go, oh, that's our thing for prosperity and symbolism. And you go, oh, well, we have that too. And then there's like a little dialogue happens, and those things, like you might find now someone who has nothing to do with Chinese anything, has a little Buddha or a little, yeah, exactly, a little one of those lucky cats or whatever. It's called cross-cultural, look at that. That's their answer for chasing away demons. I'll try that out. Hand sanitizer. Yeah, of course. So, wow. It's already 6:40 and we haven't actually even started on the Parsha.
Well, this is a Torah study. This is how Torah study goes. This is the traditional Torah study. All we need is at my synagogue we do Torah study and we put out like sunflower. So at a Sephardic synagogue, people eat sunflower seeds.
Okay.
All you hear is crunch, 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 crunch. It's like it's like a bunch of squirrels, sitting at the table. You hear crunching everywhere, and people are, chiming in and challenging each other. I might have a question for the rabbi, and someone else won't let the rabbi answer. They want to answer my question. This is the way it goes. This is beautiful what we're doing here right now. We're creating.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to have Channing share his knowledge, because I got to tell you, folks, I've heard about this mysticism since I was a child, about the blue string, the famous blue string. And you're essentially like, I don't know, getting a chance to skip to the answer, which is great, and not have to go through all the torture of 50 years of waiting to hear about, Channing's knowledge. So
it's growing up. I don't know if you recall, growing up, no one had any techelet, the blue string on the tzitzit. No one had anything. You couldn't find it. It wasn't until probably 15 years ago where you started to see people incorporating it into practice. So, for instance, that the tzitzit I have, and on the talit that I wear, I don't have a blue string.
Yeah,
I've
never actually, honestly, I will be honest. I don't think I've actually ever seen one in use. I've seen people only among, I would say, I have seen Reform Jew synagogues where people are wearing rainbow-colored talit.
Yeah.
Which to me, is kind of, it's when that is at the point where your zucchini lasagna is no longer lasagna. Okay, that to me, that's like too.
That's where you draw the line. But
I don't know. It's so weird to me. I don't know. But like, usually, and I don't want to be judgmental, but it doesn't, I'm just saying it's not what I experienced and was indoctrinated into, really. So it's fine, and I'm doing, I don't know. It's like wearing a kilt, okay? Totally fine. I'm still not gonna do it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So totally acceptable, but not for me. So the blue string I have always been intrigued about, and Channing, to know that, I know that that Channing, this is really a level of importance to him such that he's made his whole life about this, right? Both Judaism and wool and dyeing and the artistry. So if I were to have a blue string, I would want from him.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. Why don't we just get a couple of nuggets from here?
Let's do it. The Parsha.
From the Parsha. So we're at Pekudei. And as I mentioned before, those of you who haven't heard, what we as Jews, what we do is we have an annual cycle. We read the Torah, and it's divided up into weekly portions. And this week's portion, at this time of the year, every year, is Parsha Pekudei. And what it's doing is the last several Parshiot, we're discussing the building of the temple, the construction, well, of the mobile temple, the Mishkan, which was is like a tent that would be erected in the, I know you like that word, erected in the wilderness. And then the worship.
This is camping for Jews. This
Yes.
is what this Exodus, I always feel like, is a camping guide for Jews.
Yeah.
That's what it is. How to deal with the wilderness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and then so it's confusing, you know, we talked about the representation of the Mishkan and why we even go into learning about this, like what relevance is this? Because literally when the Torah was given to Moshe, and then these Parshiot were written about constructing the mobile temple, the purpose of going into Israel, the promise was a construction would occur of a permanent structure that would be the temple to worship God. So this was a temporary thing anyway. So it's interesting that the temporary became part of the book that would be eternal, that would follow us, that we would be reading now, which has no relevance, because even following the prediction, the promise that there will be a third temple, it's not a mobile temple. The third temple that will be constructed in the time of the Moshiach, in the time where the redemption comes, it will be a physical structure in Jerusalem. So why are we continuing to read this? Well, one of the commentators discusses this. And what the commentator Sforno says is that the tabernacle, that is the mobile temple, and its individual parts were of such awesome holiness that they survived intact through time and wars. Unlike the two temples that were sacked and destroyed, the Mishkan, the tent, remained intact and was never captured or desecrated. The four reasons for this are alluded to in the first two verses. It was the tabernacle of the testimony, where the tablets, the symbols of God's communion with Israel, were deposited, where the 10 Commandments were. Number two, it was built at Moshe's bidding, thus benefiting from his personal majesty. Three, the service of the Leviim, the tribe of Levi, who had proven their greatness by not worshiping the golden calf, and all the components under the tabernacle were under the charge of Isamar, a man of great stature. And four, those who led the work, as represented by Betzalel, were men of distinguished lineage and outstanding righteousness. Because of those factors, Sforno explains that the tabernacle was impervious to time and enemies, whereas the temple in Jerusalem, Solomon's temple, in contrast, was built not by these righteous people, and consequently, even though God's soul rested upon it, its parts became worn and required repair and replacement. And the second temple was built only by the benevolence of King Cyrus, and it never had the tablets or the Spirit of God, and both temples fell into enemy hands, were looted and destroyed. So I think the Torah is discussing this mobile tent, and as we talked about in several parsha, I think 3 parsha before, is because the symbol of that is something that we carry with us all the time. You know, that expression, our body is our temple. This is what this is talking about. And these parsha, while they go into great detail of the construction, we also, our bodies are constructed with great detail and with beauty. And while we can use our hands and we can use our minds and we can use our spirits, because that creative process is what helps us make art and beautify the things that we build. I mean, anyone can learn how to blow glass, right? But it's a special person who has the imagination to be able to blow glass in a way and create a design that's pleasing to the eye. So it's not just that, you know, a bowl or that you're smoking from, but it's a really fancy bowl. So we too have that power of creation and making our bodies that temple to serve God. And when we're serving God, we're serving the oneness and connecting others. So, and helping other people. So hopefully what we can learn from this is in our world, we are constructing, we're in constant construction. And we want to do it in a beautiful way. We want to do it in a way that honors God in honoring the oneness. And we want to do it in a way that's honoring ourselves and our own creative process. And I think what the Torah is telling us is that that is special. Don't just go throughout life in thinking that there's it's a utility. It's you like everything is just to be used. But think of it from its sense of beauty and a sense of wonder, and try and make the world a better place through your creative process. And like what things that Channing are doing and the things that other artists are doing. And even if you don't see yourself as an artist, try. I'm sure you can. Cooking, uh, speaking, telling stories, these are all forms of art.
Everyone needs to be able to make some art.
Yes. Yes. Find your creative process. Roll with
Your
it.
creative process, well, Yetzer Hara actually is supposed to drive the artistic force in some ways. And in some ways, artistry is still it's a power to tap into for all of us, right?
I would just like to break in here a second, and
yeah,
artistic, everyone is a creative force. The entire universe is a creative force. We are all part of creation, and to create is a fundamental emanation of Hashem. That we all are artists capable of creating both the good and the bad.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Amen to that. And the Parsha actually tells us, let's see here, there's a commentator, Rashi, talks about the name Betzalel. So like everything happens for a reason. And, Betzalel is this artisan who's helping to build a temple. And his name, when you break down his name, it's Betzal El, which means in the shadow of God. And Moshe said about Betzalel, you must have been in God's shadow when he spoke to me, because for indeed, although the ark is mentioned first because of its primary importance, so did I hear from Hashem that the tabernacle must come first in that term of the actual construction. So Betzalel is recognized as having divine inspiration in spirit, in understanding how to create this art. And he's creating this art in the shadow of God. And so the first artisan in the Torah, because this is where it's happening, is Betzalel and Ohelim. And so as opposed to creating a different name, the Torah is telling us that the name of the artisan is the one who is in the shadow of God. So, hopefully all of us can take that creative force in this coming week and for the rest of our lives. And when we're creating, let's create in the shadow of God, to create that oneness and inspire others to feel that and feel that oneness and connection. So I want to say it's been a pleasure as always. I look forward to next week. And Channing, I'm so happy that you were able to participate. God willing, next week, Mizrat Hashem, you'll be here, and we can continue the discussion. And I encourage others to chime in, questions, challenges, not just on the chat, but come in and participate, please. It makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I would second that, Channing. I really appreciate your wisdom. You are Chacham Channing.
Yeah,
for sure. So
okay, love you all. Peace in the Middle East.
Thank you so much.
Peace now to our Muslim brothers and sisters. I pray that there should be peace and the hostages be freed, and then the killing just ends. You know,
Oh,
it's
yes,
got
and it needs peace, peace.
peace in the Middle East. Okay, love you all. Shalom.